work on Treaty 7, Treaty 6, and Métis ancestral lands, the gathering place for many indigenous peoples. This is where we strive to honor and transform our relationship with one another.
Thank you so much, Hervé. So now I'm going to introduce our presenter, Elisabeth Muia, our presenter today. So who is Elisabeth? So Elisabeth is a registered provisional psychologist in the province of Alberta. She works as a contractor with a practice called Therapy Alberta. As a mental health professional, she enjoys to support people of color, minorities, and immigrants. In her free time, you will find Elisabeth cooking, sleeping, traveling, volunteering in her local community, and hanging out with her 3 children. So today, Elisabeth will present this workshop entitled Seniors Well-Being, How to Cope and How to Deal with Loneliness. So I will give you the floor, Elisabeth. So Elisabeth, I will let you do your presentation. And thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you, Christel and DDI, for providing this opportunity where we can come together and talk about loneliness. Something that I did not say in my bio is that I am an empty nester. So I am actually a lonely person. My children went away to college outside of Calgary. And so I find myself just all the time being alone. And so this is a subject that is very passionate and close to my heart.
Dans son introduction, elle est une thérapeute praticienne en Alberta. Et aujourd'hui, elle va couvrir le sujet du bien-être des personnes aînées, comment dealer avec la solitude chez les aînés.
So I'm going to invite us to get grounded. Being grounded is just like being able to bring ourselves to this space. Like we can see, we've had a little bit of interruptions here and there. We came from somewhere, so to be able to bring ourselves to this so that we can focus on what you're going to be discussing over the next 1 hour. When you look at that picture, you can see a cup of tea. If you want to grab yourself something like maybe a cup of water, you can do that now. If not, we can just get grounded in the session. So I'm going to invite you to place one hand on the chest.
Donc, elle demande de mettre une main sur la poitrine. Madame Toumba, pour ceux qui ne comprennent pas le français, oui. Juste une main sur la poitrine.
Okay. And then the other hand, we are going to put it on the belly button. The stomach.
Et l'autre main, vous mettez ça sur au niveau de l'estomac.
And feel the connection, just the connection between your hand, one hand on the belly and the other hand on the chest. And I'm going to invite you to breathe in through the belly button. Like you're breathing in and you're imagining that you're pulling in the air through the belly button. So you're doing.
Donc,
and then you breathe out.
Elle demande de sentir la connexion et de respirer à travers au niveau du nombril.
Okay,
si vous
so
ressentez cette connexion-là.
Through the belly
button. C'est ce qu'il est en train de demander de faire.
And breathe out through the mouth. And as you blow out,
vous expirez.
Yeah. Imagine that you're blowing out a candle. You're just doing.
Oui, imaginez que vous êtes en train de souffler sur une bougie, par exemple.
Yeah. And we want the breathing out to be longer, the exhale to be longer. So you breathe in on a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out on a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slowly, okay. Okay, so we'll start breathing, and I want you to try to establish a rhythm. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in. Just noticing the air going through your nostrils, noticing any sensations in your body. And as you do that, I want you to draw attention to your toes. So keep the breathing going, and then we're going to the toes. Squeeze those tight as you breathe in and relax. Come to the lower part of your legs. Notice the muscles there. Squeeze them tight as you breathe in and relax. Let's come to the thigh muscles. Again, hold, squeezing those tight and relax. Let's come to the butt muscles. Squeeze those tight. And just noticing what it feels like when you let go and relax. Let's come to the stomach muscles. Squeeze those tight and relax. Let's come to the hands. Squeeze and relax. Let's come to the shoulder area. Squeeze those tight and relax. And finally, let's come to the face. And it's okay to be ugly, I can't see you. So squeeze your face muscles all together at the same time. And relax. Couple more breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room. Okay. We can go to the next slide. So what is loneliness? Some people describe it just from the English word being alone. Is that enough to describe loneliness? When I was preparing for this presentation, there was an item on the news. I don't know whether some of you saw it, but it was about a lonely ship that was rescued somewhere in Europe. And when the team completed that rescue, the ship had been lost in the mountains. Ship like an animal ship, had been lost in the mountains and had lived there for quite some time. And when the team was able to rescue the ship from the lonely mountain, there was a lot of joy and jubilation. They celebrated. I wonder why.
Est-ce que je dois traduire au fur et à mesure ou bien... Parce que je pense que j'étais perdu à un moment donné.
Madame Toumba, est-ce que vous voulez qu'on traduise chaque slide ou chaque...
Ou bien on vous donne juste le message global à la fin, ou bien à la fin de la...
Non, elle sera déconnectée. C'est mieux de traduire immédiatement chaque slide, résumé, pour qu'elle puisse être à la page. Parce que ça, c'est important. C'est ça.
OK. Est-ce que tu peux continuer, s'il te plaît, parce que je vais...
D'accord. So, Elisabeth, what we're going to do after you present each slide, I'm going to give like how we say that, a resume or like...
summarize.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so that those who are not speaking French, they can get it from the summary. Okay. And so then, other than the physical act of being alone, on the top of the slide there, you can see a scale. So we are looking at an imbalance. So loneliness is a feeling that you get when social connection. Remember the sheep that was lost in the mountain? It was cut away from the other sheep. So it was alone. But is alone enough to feel to be lonely? No, because loneliness is a feeling that we get when there is an imbalance, okay? An imbalance of what I feel I should be experiencing from my social connections and what I'm actually getting. There is an African proverb that says that, and again, I saw this when I was doing my research, that a bracelet, bracelet, like I think I'm wearing a bracelet. Many of us wear bracelets. Mine is single. A single bracelet, it doesn't matter how much I shake it. It's not going to jingle because it doesn't have connection with others. But if you have many bracelets, like the ones that you can see in the picture, if you jingle them, they're going to produce something. They might produce a sound. They might produce music. They might hurt each other. They're going to produce something. That connection is the opposite of loneliness. So when we are lacking that human connection, then we are going to experience something inside of us. It's a feeling. And sometimes it's hard to notice because you can't see it. It's like a concept, something abstract. And so in order for us to really notice the loneliness, then we have to be connected with ourselves so that we can be able to see the imbalance between where I want to be or I think I should be and where I actually am. Now, if you are not able to notice it, remember we are talking about social connection, other people might see it. And so for the lonely person, it might be the people around you saying, are you okay? They're bringing it to your attention that you look lonely. So you can summarize, it's just being able to see the gap between where I'm supposed to be when I have social connections and where I am right now because my social connections are lacking, or I have the social connections, but I'm not fitting. Because you can also be lonely in a crowd. Okay.
OK, donc en résumé, ce qu'elle a dit, c'est que la solitude, c'est le sentiment que nous avons lorsqu'on se sent seul et que ça va au-delà de juste se sentir seul physiquement. Et que ça va au-delà de juste se sentir seul physiquement, mais au-delà de ce sentiment-là, la solitude ou loneliness, parce qu'en français, il existe deux termes. Il y a comme solitude et isolement. Donc, c'est vraiment le sentiment de ce débalancement-là en nous-mêmes. Et que l'opposé de la solitude, c'est justement le sentiment de connexion humaine. Ça peut arriver qu'on est seul ou qu'on se sente seul, mais qu'on ne réalise même pas qu'on est seul, qu'on se sent seul, qu'on a ce sentiment-là, mais les gens autour de nous peuvent comme détecter cela et nous faire part ou nous poser des questions par rapport à notre situation. En gros, c'était ça. J'espère que c'est clair.
So here we see somebody who is alone, sitting in a room somewhere and just staring out into the darkness. I'm assuming it's night because I can see stars and the person is alone. So who is more likely, who are at risk of being lonely? In Canada. We'll talk about Canada because this is where we are. So according to Statistics Canada, loneliness is actually pretty common. More than one in 10 people, and this is a survey that was done in 2021. I think that's when we had the COVID, and they found that 1 in 10 people, more than 1 in 10 people said that they were always or often lonely. On a scale, so we usually do like a Likert scale, so it would be from not lonely at all to almost or often lonely. In that survey, 3 out of 10 said they were lonely sometimes, and only 5 out of the 10 said they were rarely. So we are seeing that more than half of the people, seniors in Canada, they report to be lonely.
OK. Donc, cette slide présente un peu quelques statistiques de la solitude au Canada. Donc, on peut voir qu'une personne sur 10 se sent toujours très souvent seule. Ça, c'était le sondage qui a été fait par Statistique Canada. C'est Statistique Canada. Is that correct? Statistique Canada?
Yeah.
Okay. Statistique Canada en 2021. Et puis, on avait comme, dans ce chiffre-là, on avait à peu près 19,2% des adultes canadiens de plus de 65 ans qui se sentaient soit souvent seuls ou toujours seuls. Et il y avait plusieurs immigrants, que ce soit hommes ou femmes. Et ce qu'on constate aussi, c'est que les immigrants qui sont là depuis longtemps ont tendance à être plus seuls que ceux qui viennent, par exemple, d'arriver.
Now, out of the seniors, and by seniors, we are talking about people 65 years and above, we are seeing that almost 20% of them are likely to be lonely. And out of those, the risk is higher for immigrants. Immigrants are people like us who came to Canada. Amongst those, women are more likely to be lonely. Men will also be lonely, but when we compare men and women, we are saying women are more likely to be lonely. And out of those, the seniors, people who immigrated to Canada as adults, that is, they were between the ages of 18 and 44. If you came to Canada between the age of 18 and 44, you're more likely to be lonely as a senior. Another risk factor is those seniors who have stayed in Canada more than 20 years. Now, I am in that group, or I'm most likely going to be in that group, because by the time I came to Canada, I was already 18 years and above. And as of today, I am 11 years in Canada. So by the time I get to 65 and above, I will definitely have been. And so what you're trying to say here is that this subject of loneliness affects us, parents or seniors that we've brought from outside of the country.
OK, juste une précision par rapport aux statistiques. Donc, on constate que le risque est plus élevé de solitude chez les immigrants adultes. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment les immigrants qui arrivent au Canada en tant qu'adultes qui ont entre 18 ans et 45 ans. Et la solitude est aussi plus fréquente chez les femmes que chez les hommes immigrants.
And I like to bring that to our attention again, because we said we might not realize it. We might not notice when we are getting lonely. We might not think this affects us because we're like, oh, I'm coping so well. But then just to have in mind that there is that risk factor. No, you're not necessarily going to be lonely because we are seeing that there's only like 20% of the population, but it's a risk factor that can affect all of us as immigrants. And then we can move to the next slide.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
What can be the reason why this disparity between women and men in terms of loneliness? Is there a reason why women are more likely to be lonely compared to men?
Women or even other men, what do you think? What do you think could be a factor? Anybody?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I was surprised with the numbers.
I may have an answer.
Okay.
I think it depends the way we raise women, because we are raised to be like at home, take care of home, and just like, and men are more like, it is easier for men to just go out, hang out with their friends and have a beer and just like enjoy, which is not well seen for women to do the same thing, especially in our communities. So this is my answer. So I can translate pour les francophones.
So if I understand well, it means that men are more likely to have connections with their peers compared to women, is what I understand, Christelle?
Yes, this, and also the fact that men are raised to go out more often. Like, it is.
Yes, of course. In any culture, men are breadwinners. That's why they are the one going out. Even in the jungle, in the animal wildlife, it is the same thing, right? Except for the lions, I think.
And so the study that I looked at did not explain why the difference, but from what Christelle, or I think that was Christelle, what she said makes a lot of sense. We have seen loneliness as being what happens when there is a lack of that social connection. Now, women are raised to be more social. And so when they get that age to be seniors, when the social connections are lost, they are more likely to experience that loss of connection. Another reason why, and this is just my own thinking, is that probably women are more connected to their feelings. And so when they experience the loneliness, they are more likely to report. But this is a study, they were asking people, are you lonely? And so maybe the women are more likely to notice, yeah, I am lonely. Men might be, I'm okay, I'm used to being like this. So for me, life just goes on. I've been...
Yeah, I agree with your explanation because it might make more sense. Men have the tendency not to report their weaknesses. I am okay with that. So because being lonely is like you agree on the fact that you are showing your weakness. So
exactly, yeah. And that part about showing the weaknesses, we might touch about it a little bit. We can go to, unless there are other comments. Is there anybody else that wanted to?
Bon, si on peut traduire la conversation qu'on est en train d'avoir.
Yeah, why?
Pour les autres participants, donc, Hervé a posé la question de savoir pourquoi les femmes immigrantes ont plus tendance à être seules que les hommes. Selon vous, quelles pourraient être les explications? Donc, c'est ça la discussion qu'on est en train de faire. Elisabeth a dit comme quoi c'est parce que les femmes souvent aussi reportent très souvent leurs feelings, leurs sentiments, comment elles se sentent. Puis moi, je disais que la façon aussi qu'on a été éduqués, comme on est élevé, on élève la femme de sorte qu'elle soit souvent à la maison et tout. Pourtant, l'homme, il a comme beaucoup d'interactions. Il sort le week-end, il prend des bières avec des amis. C'est tellement bien vu. Pourtant, la femme, elle est souvent à la maison, s'occuper de la maison, les enfants, tout ça. So, c'était ça nos différentes explications. Est-ce que vous avez comme des explications que vous pouvez partager?
Et l'une des raisons pour lesquelles je mettais des réserves sur la proposition de Christelle, c'est parce que si une femme a été éduquée comme ça, je ne vois pas pourquoi elle va se sentir seule, parce que ça fait partie de sa vie, c'est déjà une habitude de vie. Si on a été éduqué à être seul, à un moment donné, ça fait partie intégrante de soi, et donc forcément, on va dire que c'est de la solitude. C'est pour ça que je mettais des réserves. Par contre, Elisabeth dit que c'est parce que les femmes ont une tendance à reporter leurs sentiments. C'est pour ça que j'ai adhéré à cette idée, dans la mesure où nous, les hommes, souvent, on ne présente pas nos faiblesses. Parce que dire que tu es seul, si on t'interroge dans une enquête comme ça, très souvent, les hommes ne vont pas l'avouer, par pudeur de manifester leurs faiblesses. Et je ne sais pas, est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre a une idée?
D'accord, parce que souvent aussi, quand les hommes arrivent comme immigrants, ils sont souvent accompagnés de familles. Et la famille, donc généralement, la femme reste plus à côté de l'homme. Par contre, je soutiens effectivement aussi le point de vue de Hervé qui dit que oui, l'homme ne veut pas montrer la faiblesse, même si la femme a été élevée pour être réservée. Donc, c'est ce qui fait que, bon, à un certain moment, quand on lui pose finalement la question en poussant, parce que, bon, quelque part ici, on nous permet de parler, elle finit par exprimer son côté d'isolement.
Okay, so she said that she agreed with Hervé's argument, saying that, like your argument, it was your first, saying that men are not willing to show their weakness as women, and also because men, when they usually immigrate here, they usually bring their families with them, so they have their wife and children. So I think that's all. Hervé, est-ce que je vous dis quelque chose? Do I miss something?
No, je pense that, yeah, I think
that's an interesting observation. That's an interesting observation. Because actually we see, like in my community, I see that when the man is the first to immigrate here, the women and the family are more willing to accompany them. However, some of the time we see that when the woman is the first one to immigrate here,
yeah,
I see in my community, I don't know how it is in your community, but some of the time, the man might not be willing to join. They might
Absolutely.
be comfortable with their life back home, or they might come, but because they're not the ones that had the dream, they might come here, stay for a little bit, and decide to go back. And so then fast forward, as a senior, this woman is more likely to be alone.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because a woman is supposed to be the one following her husband, not the reverse.
According to our culture. Let's move to the next slide. Maybe some of this discussion
even in the Western culture, because, for instance, Madame Hillary Clinton, her name is Rodham, but she took the name of her husband. So I think it's like that almost everywhere.
That there's a cultural factor. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
let's move on. There are some things that will connect. We'll come back to this topic, and there's some things in the next two slides that will link back to that observation. So again, here we see the image of the scale, and the scale is again out of balance. And so now what we are going to try to touch just a little bit on the surface. This is a topic that cannot be discussed in 1 hour. So what we are going to scratch the surface is that when this imbalance happens, what do we see? How do we notice this gap? The scale has shifted. There is one side that's heavier than the other. So now there is a gap. There is an imbalance. And that imbalance can be seen or noticed with the image of that car. It's probably driving in the winter, And there are many of them, so maybe it has tried many times, but every time it's just skidding. It's going off the road. Maybe the tires are not having grip on the road, so there is lack of traction. And so how do we notice that in ourselves? What are we going to see when somebody is lonely? First of all, we're going to see a lack of fit. And the lack of fit is going to be, for example, let's say this person is in the company of other people. Remember, we said it's possible to be lonely in a crowd. So maybe this person is surrounded by friends, family members, community, but there is some lack of fit, and so this person can feel lonely. The other lack of fit can happen in that this person is being given social supports by the people, but they're not receiving it. So that one is going to cause a lack of fit. And also lack of support. You could be here, you're a senior, you feel like you have your needs, but they're not being met. Either because you're not communicating them, or the people around you are not noticing your signs of loneliness. And so what are some of these signs that we're going to see? There's going to be a change in general lifestyle. For example, if the person used to have good sleep, you can notice that your sleep now has changed. Either you're sleeping very little, you are falling asleep but waking up often and not being able to fall back asleep, or the opposite also, are sleeping too much. Change in diet. Either this person is not eating well enough, or they're eating too much of, like you're eating for comfort, like your eating goes off. So then you might find your weight, what people might notice is that your weight is changing. Either you're gaining too much weight or you're losing too much weight. Low energy, no interest in anything. You feel weak, you feel like your body, and for us like Africans, we tend to notice more the physical. So you might notice, oh, this person is losing weight. This person is feeling like I don't have energy to do anything. Those are the physical signs. Headache. Because for some people, the emotions, remember we said loneliness is an emotion, and so it's gonna show up somehow. For us as Africans, we tend to see where the things that we are feeling inside, we notice them in our body. You feel like you're feeling tired, you're feeling headache, you're feeling stomachache, you're feeling low energy, yes. We could also see negative emotions. So you might not notice the loneliness itself per se, but you might see that I'm feeling sad. Negative emotions, the word that I used it carefully was, I wanted to mean the emotions that make you feel down. There are some other emotions that make you feel activated, like when you feel joy, yeah, you feel happy. When you feel sad, it's like the other way. So you might notice sadness, you might notice hopelessness, you might notice frustration, you might notice, those negative.
Ici, là, Elisabeth a donné un peu les signes comme de la solitude, et puis elle a associé à l'image qu'il y a l'image de la balance comme un débarrassement ou de la voiture qui dérape là, pour montrer quand il y a plus d'équilibre, ça crée comme un dérapage ou un débalancement et tout. Et puis les signes qu'on peut voir, c'est le manque de forme. Ça peut être la forme physique, comme ça peut être la forme émotionnelle ou interpersonnelle. Là. Et il y a aussi le manque de support. Ici, le manque de support, ça ne veut pas forcément dire que la personne n'a pas de support, mais la personne ne perçoit pas le support. Ça se peut qu'il y ait les gens dans l'entourage qui apportent leur support, mais la personne ne voit pas ou ne perçoit pas le support qui lui est apporté et qui reste dans ce schéma-là. il y a des signes physiques concrets comme avoir une qualité de sommeil qui n'est pas très bonne, une diète qui n'est pas très santé, avoir une faible énergie ou se sentir comme juste avoir ce feeling-là d'être malade, ne pas être dans sa forme, dans sa pleine forme, et aussi ressentir tout un tas d'émotions négatives comme la tristesse, la frustration. Donc, c'est ça qu'elle disait ici, comme signe de solitude.
What can we do to cope with loneliness? When I was thinking of how to discuss this section of the presentation, I thought of the immigrant. Maybe we are bringing in our parents to come and visit. Or maybe it's just you're now a senior, you've gone back home, and you're coming back again to visit in Canada. And so can we start the preparation while somebody is still back home before the visa is even approved, or right when the visa is approved, that's when we know for sure this person is coming to Canada. Can we start?
Hi, Elisabeth.
Yep.
So when you say that we have to start when a person is still abroad, does that mean that in Africa we don't have loneliness for seniors? Is what
no,
you mean? Are we assuming that?
No. We are thinking about loneliness in Canada. Remember when we started our discussion, it was loneliness in Canada. And so then how can we prepare this person to be prepared not to face? We're not preparing them to be lonely. We're actually preparing them not to be lonely in Canada. And so sometimes just having a discussion with them that it is going to be different. This person is being cut from their social connections. And so how is life is going to be different for them. They're not going to have their friends around. They're not going to have their grandchildren, their women group, their men that they used to drink with and socialize in the village. And so when that person come here, because remember we said when that lack of balance, sometimes it's because of unmet expectation. I came to a place where I can't find my neighbors. I can't talk to them. I don't understand the language. So part of that preparation could be like for example, is there anything from back home that this person, other than the mindset we're talking about, when you explain to them, you are trying to change the mindset so that the expectation is not, they know it's going to be different when I go there. And then the other way that they can cope with that is looking to see, is there something that my senior can bring with them that can help them to feel just a little bit connected. I have a very good example. In 2016, my mother-in-law visited, and I didn't prepare her. But when she was here, I noticed she had brought her, she used to do crochet. So she brought her crochet and she would sit down and crochet. And we even found a connection doing that together. She even made things like she was occupying herself to do something. So we are asking, is there something? It could be, can I bring some music? Can I bring some food? Can I bring some of the items that, like if I have something that reminds me of my culture that helps me to feel connected, can I bring that where possible? Then when you get to Canada, staying connected. Here in Canada and like in most Western world, we find that indoor culture, which is likely to be a culture shock for our seniors. They come here, you're in the house with them, you're providing everything. But for them, that is not enough because remember, they came from a different kind of culture where socializing was what made them not feel lonely. And then they come here and they're feeling lonely in your house. So how can they stay connected? again, we are seeing them being connected with, and nowadays there is internet. So maybe can this person listen to some local music? Can this person watch some local TV station? Can this person call people back home and just connect with them we're not saying 100%, we're just saying a little bit to help with that connection so that they're not feeling too disconnected. And then adjusting to the new environment. So you come here, we know there is what you experience, there is how you knew how to cope back home, but guess what? It's different now here. How can I adjust to a new country? How can I start to find joy? Are there some of the things here that I could do? Like, for example, can I attend community groups like DDI? Are there some local events that are happening that you can bring your seniors to? Can they go to the local community center and just hang around there? Can they go for a walk? And finally, getting help. I know this one is a big one because in my culture and in most African cultures, when we think of mental wellness, we think of crazy, psycho. It's like I can't be that. So in therapy, we are not diagnosing all the time. I actually like to consider therapy as self-care. Because remember, at home, you had your neighbors, you had your church leader, you had your local community leader, you could talk to anybody. Over here, and some of you will agree, you go try to talk to somebody to your problems, they'll be like, no, you're stressing me. Or they might even say, go talk to a counselor, because that's what they do here. So that getting help, you can get professional help, and it's not necessarily to go and diagnose you as being crazy. It's to go and talk through what you are experiencing, which is new to you, and get coping skills. You could also get help from your family members, letting them know. In our culture, we have that not telling everybody everything. Guess what? In this country, if you're not, because they believe in autonomy, if you're not saying what you need, then people might just not do anything for you because they don't want to cross that boundary of trying to give you what you don't need. So we have to adjust and start speaking so that we can get help. And I think to that I could have added accepting the help, because again, we've had cases where children bring their parents, they're trying to give the help, but the parent is resistant because they say, I'm not used to that. I don't need that. We're not giving because we are saying we've noticed there is a gap. And so whether you accept the help or not, that gap or refuse the gap remains. And so it's an adjustment here. Okay. So that was a lot again, Christobel, I'm sorry.
So, ce que Elisabeth a présenté sur ces slides, c'est comment faire face à la solitude. Quels sont les outils pour faire face à la solitude? Donc, le premier point, c'est vraiment de préparer nos aînés bien avant leur départ. Une fois qu'ils ont le visa, oui, c'est bien, mais qu'ils soient encore dans leur pays d'origine, on peut déjà comme les préparer psychologiquement et tout, qu'ils s'apprêtent. Puis l'autre point, c'était de rester connecté. Comment rester connecté pour un aîné qui arrive ici au Canada? Le conseil, c'est que l'aîné peut apporter quelque chose qui va l'occuper, c'est ça, et puis qui va leur permettre de rester connecté une fois ici. Et puis, elle a pris l'exemple du crochet, par exemple. Si l'aîné sait crocheter, il peut apporter comme des fils et tout pour pouvoir crocheter. Je prends l'exemple aussi de ma grand-mère qui est arrivée. Donc, elle s'occupe en faisant des bâtons de manioc et tout ça. Donc, faire des trucs qui vont comme leur permettre de se sentir un peu comme, de ne pas se sentir dépaysé, c'est plus le terme, de ne pas trop se sentir dépaysé. Puis de
se sentir utile aussi.
C'est ça, utile et ne pas se sentir dépaysé. Puis ça leur permet aussi d'occuper leur journée. Le troisième point, justement, c'est ajuster, les aider à se préparer ou bien les aider à s'ajuster à un nouvel environnement. Nous savons qu'au Canada, la culture est plus de rester à l'intérieur et tout, contrairement en Afrique où on est tout le temps, pas tout le temps dehors. Je veux dire, on entretient des relations comme très chaleureux, très amical avec nos voisins. C'est facile comme d'aller s'asseoir avec son voisin dans la cour, de jaser, de discuter. Ce qui ne se fait pas ici au Canada, donc de les préparer à s'ajuster à ça. Donc, ils vont toujours être à l'intérieur, préparer mentalement pour ça. Puis, le dernier point, c'est de recevoir de l'aide et pouvoir accepter cette aide-là. Donc, être prête à aller demander conseil, que ce soit aller en thérapie, voir un thérapeute. Le thérapeute, ce n'est pas toujours parce qu'on a une pathologie mentale, qu'on a une maladie mentale, mais c'est aussi pour pouvoir comme parler, pour pouvoir apprendre des outils pour mieux gérer comme ce qu'on vit sur le moment et faire face justement à la solution. Et c'est important d'accepter cette aide-là. En gros, c'est ça qu'elle a présenté.
Ce qu'on a remarqué aussi, c'est que dans nos communautés afro, quand nous faisons venir nos parents ici, après on les laisse dans certaines situations et ça affecte leur santé mentale. Donc vraiment les occuper, c'est extrêmement important. Puisque, comme elle a dit, la culture du vivre à l'intérieur, là, c'est pas quelque chose qui est très africain. On a toujours quelque chose à faire là-bas en Afrique, on connecte facilement avec les voisins, etc. Alors qu'en Amérique du Nord, à cause du climat aussi, surtout pendant l'hiver, chacun est chez soi, on sort très peu. Et donc, quand on n'a pas beaucoup de choses à faire, ça devient un peu compliqué, quoi.
Et elle a ajouté, elle avait dit ça, j'ai oublié de mentionner, elle disait que c'est important aussi d'apprendre c'est quoi les événements dans la communauté où on peut amener les aînés pour qu'ils puissent rencontrer d'autres aînés et puis pouvoir comme juste s'amuser aussi. Ici, je sais que souvent les personnes aînées partent dans les centres commerciaux et se promènent à l'intérieur des centres commerciaux, même s'ils n'achètent rien. Et souvent, ça fait qu'ils se regroupent, ils se retrouvent parce qu'ils se voient souvent et puis ils tissent des liens d'amitié et puis c'est comme ça que ça devient une routine pour eux.
Oui, parce que ce serait bien qu'une maman camerounaise fasse la connaissance d'une maman, je ne sais pas, burkinabé, qui fait la connaissance d'une maman kenyane, etc. Comme ça, ils échangent sur plusieurs points, quoi.
Yeah, that's a good idea for an activity with the DDI.
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to think about it at DDI. Like we can do a get-together for our seniors, like in person. A get-together in person.
And food is also another way that people connect. And so you could, with people cooking some of that local food in your house or in those get-togethers. Yeah, little ways of, and so then what can we do then? The next slide, which is I think the last one, the other one is just some reference, I think. Yeah, so the last slide there. So then what can we do? We are seeing that, again, because we are talking about loneliness, it's something that you kind of feel inside. And so before it comes to the surface, you're already experiencing it. Before we start to see the signs, like we saw that some of them could be the physical, this person has started getting sick. They're complaining of headache. They're complaining of stomachache. We can see they are withdrawn. We can see they're sad all the time. They are complaining of lack of energy, all those. Before that comes to our knowledge, it's already happening inside. And so then who is at the best position to communicate this to us, the caregivers? It's the person that's experiencing. And that's why we are saying one of the biggest ways to tackle this is that self-care. Now, that is a challenge for many of our African culture. Remember, we are talking about people who are already socialized in certain ways. By the time they came to Canada, they already knew how to do things in certain ways. We are not socialized in a way to be putting ourselves first. You come to this country, you find that culture shock. You have to put yourself first. How do you adjust to that? How can I learn to take care of myself? How can I learn to communicate my needs, even though it is embarrassing? And so when you find that it's difficult for me to communicate what I'm feeling, then that's a time to go talk to somebody. How can I learn to? Because you didn't know that, you don't have that toolkit. How can I learn how to be aware of what is happening inside of me? How can I learn to communicate that? How can I learn to accept to be? And so what are some of the things that you do for self-care, or you found helpful with your seniors for self-care? What are some ideas for self-care? How can somebody do self-care? Open discussion now.
On ouvre la discussion. Elisabeth, dans la dernière slide, elle présente comment apprendre à prendre soin de soi et à communiquer ses besoins de la façon la plus saine. Et elle ouvre la discussion. Elle demande qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour prendre soin de nous? Quelles sont les idées? Quelles sont vos idées? So
some ideas for self-care. We are saying that when you remember, there was that tip in the weighing scale. So there is something that has happened, right? And so the self-care from the inside, we are saying, because it is a feeling, it means that something inside of me, maybe inside my nervous system, was activated, but in the opposite way. Loneliness takes us down. So I'm activated, but I'm activated in ways that are taking me down. I'm feeling down. So what are some of the things that can help me to relax, but also help me to lift up my spirit? Lift up, because if the scale is like this, the only way to bring back that balance is to either bring this up or bring this down, right? So now we are talking of here, me bringing it up. Because over here, people can try to do things for me, can try to take away some of my stress. It might reduce it a little bit, but there is also another level where I need to do something. I, self, need to do something to bring up whatever had gone down. So if it was sadness, I need to bring joy to my life. If it was feeling isolated, I need to find those connections. So what are some of the things that you do or you could suggest for seniors to feel joy and feel relaxed and to feel connected?
I think gardening helps a lot, especially seniors when they play with plants. And we also have like plants therapy at the hospital for seniors. And it works well, especially with patients who have mental or cognitive impairment. So yeah, gardening helps.
I like that idea. I like that idea of gardening, and I can see it being helpful in so many ways. It's something that can also be done indoors, even if it's just one plant. Mm-hmm. It's a project that you're giving the senior is getting to do. So they are nurturing. They are going to be creating, nurturing. It's something that they need to do on a day-to-day basis, because maybe they are watering, they're checking how it is. With time, it might produce. And actually, I remember a story. One of my friends brought the parent here, and the preparation, remember what we said, preparation before, some of the preparation needs to happen then. While they were here, it was harvesting time back home. And the parent they could just see lots of mood change, they're not knowing what is happening. The parent was worrying about what's happening with my crop. who's harvesting? Yeah, so gardening can be a good one. It helps them to connect. It's something maybe that they did before, or even if they didn't, they can learn. Remember, we talked about adjusting. Thank you for that suggestion.
Donc, je viens de juste dire que le jardinage, faire du jardinage, s'occuper des plantes ou avoir comme genre un petit jardin avec des végétaux, tout ça, là, ça aide, pas que ça peut aider, ça aide les personnes seniors à faire face à la solitude. Je pense même que ça nous aide tous, sincèrement. Là, moi-même, ça me fait du bien d'arroser mes plantes. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres idées?
Yeah, the other idea that I had is maybe to train them on new skills that they would like to learn. Maybe, for instance, if a senior doesn't have enough skills on how to use a computer, or maybe, practicing a new language. It might be, Swahili or English, or maybe French. Anyways, like something that they'll feel like they are learning, or a new culture. For instance, the First Nations culture, because we know them physically, but we don't know their culture. So a parent that is here for a period of time, can get together with those people and learn a little bit from that.
Learning something new, useful, yeah. It's helping them to adjust to, because again, this senior could be feeling lonely because of that lack of fit. They can't use whatever they knew. It's not being applicable here. Like, for example, you just can't walk around the neighborhood and talk to anybody because they don't understand the language. And so could they learn something new, a new skill? Could they even learn how to be comfortable with just taking a walk in the neighborhood and being okay with nobody saying hi to them? That's still a new skill, right? You just learn to adjust. Yeah, I can take my walk. I'm going to see neighbors, and it's okay for me not to say hi to them. Because remember, in our country, it looks very rude. How can you walk past me? You didn't say nothing. But here you're just learning how to, new skills, language, even if it's just going to, sometimes even just being in that context where, let's say, like they could go to a place where people are learning how to do, and just sit there and watch. They're interacting.
Exactly.
Okay, any other suggestions? Maybe we can take two more and then we close.
Elisabeth, thank you for a very good presentation. I like it. But the way things are coming up, it's like we are talking only about our parents that come here for a short period. When you started the presentation, I thought we were talking about ourselves who have been there for long. And then at a certain point, we become very lonely for being there for long and becoming old. That's the way I understood it. So now the way it's going on is like we are inviting our parents to come and stay. It looks like some of them are coming for a short period. They might be lonely. That's what the clarification I want to have. For myself, I'm thinking that if I'm inviting my parents, I have been in Canada for more than 40 years now. If I had to invite my parents to come here, me knowing the place I am, I will have to prepare my parents, and I have to cover them to make sure what they love, what they like doing. So I should be their best support. That's the way I'll talk about it if my parents are coming here just for a short period. For what happened for ourselves who have been here for long, and we
good question
into loneliness. That's what I was thinking of talking about, and the way we prepare ourselves to go through it. Am I clear the way I'm talking about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Because even when in the beginning there, when we were talking about the statistics, we saw that one of the risk factors, or one of the group who are more likely to be lonely when they become seniors, is people who immigrated to this country as adults. They were either between the age of 18 to 44, or people who have been here for more than 20 years. By the time we become seniors at 65, we might be in one of those two groups. And so, yes, how can we learn to adjust? And I am sorry if we didn't cover this comprehensively. Like I started in the beginning by saying this topic is very broad. Maybe we can do a follow-up, more targeted discussion where we are talking about how can we cope as people who have been here. We've talked about our, because we think maybe they are more at risk. We are assuming, oh, maybe I can adjust. But now we are saying, no, it's not just people who have come here for short stay visit. It's also us. So how can we learn to prepare for? Yeah, maybe we can make it, and it's quite deep. I don't know, with your permission, Madam Christelle and DDI, I can invite some people to make some suggestions, but I think this is broad enough to warrant, you know, just another where we're just talking about ourselves. Emmanuel, did you have any suggestions?
If I may say something?
Yeah.
We are working on something like a get-together with the First Nations, where we'll be talking to them on different topics. I think that is something that we can put together, and then that will give us time to spend, that will give us the opportunity to spend some time together with them. It might be in person or online. So
yeah, and so Emmanuel, not to just to give you something to go by while we, you know, we wait for that opportunity. I'm thinking that first part where we talked about preparing our seniors. The same can apply to us. How can I start preparing, knowing that I'm not always going to be this active with all these connections, going to work, and some of the things that help me to feel socially interacting? What am I going to do? How can I prepare for retirement? What are some of the adjustments that I need to do? What are some of the things I can do to increase my own self-awareness so that I can become aware when I start to become lonely, knowing that some of the signs could be 1, 2, 3, 4. What? Yeah.
I wanted to ask you regarding Africa, Elisabeth, because, you know, all of us, we have an African background. So it's always good to speak about a topic and relate to Africa and do maybe a comparison to see how maybe we can even do better there, or maybe advise people on how to do there, or maybe take some, you know, some information or something that is done there and then bring it here. So yeah.
And preparing for retirement, like at what,
yeah.
It's a very difficult conversation to have with yourself. So if I cannot have this conversation with myself, can I find somebody that can help me, guide me through this? Because again, preventative, we know it's coming. And so that 65 doesn't get you all of a sudden, you can't work, you're being retired at your job, or you're applying for jobs, they're not accepting you because you're already too senior to work. And so at what age, at what point in time can I start preparing? What is it gonna look like for me? And there is a very big challenge there, because remember, we came from a culture where our parents did not have to plan that for themselves. It was almost like the next generation helped the next generation, helped the next generation. We are a generation us in transition. Our children don't view the relationship they have with seniors, like you said, as we hear, when we bring our parents, we have planned. Do you think our children have the same mentality or not? So it's a topic for deep discussion, but somehow starting to get prepared, starting to look ahead. And
interesting topic.
Yeah.
Hi, Emmanuel. Are you in Alberta, or are you in? Where are you located?
I'm very far away. I live in the northern part of Canada now.
Northern.
But the northern part, Inuit community. I'm talking.
Okay.
A very lonely point, but I have my way of coping up lonely point. I travel a lot, By the way, Elisabeth, I was in your country for a few years. I can see the name remind me a lot of the Kamba people and something like that. I was there for a while. I was working international. So now I'm here in Nunavik. Okay, for a while. I understand what that can be to be lonely, but personally, I have prepared myself not to feel lonely. Not everybody can do that, because when I have been going to community, I prepare myself. Yeah. So my friend, my brother just asked,
yeah, that's me.
The children we are having here. I have my children. I have some of them that are still in university, and they are not the same. Okay, they don't feel the same way we feel with our parents from far away. We support them. That the time we think that sometimes it's not the same thing. And then when we think about loneliness, probably that's our fear. But we prepare ourselves in advance with internet on, our interest. And if you were somebody at a certain age, you have trust in God, also that can help. Okay, if you can have your community, people you used to be good with, talk to, that also can help. So I'm just talking about my own experience, the way I go through all these years. And then as for our parents that are just coming to visit us for a while, I guess us as a community, we should be prepared, knowing what we have been through ourselves to help them. Okay, it's not always going to be easy, but what you just share with us is very, very useful for us to think about and take care of it. When somebody is coming from our country here to stay with us, especially our mothers and fathers. That's what I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you brought to our attention adjusting to be okay with small ways of coping, like for example, if you are far away, physically separated from other people, like being there in the north, what are some of the ways that I can feel connected without being physically present with my community and loved ones? So yeah, the phone calls, sometimes you even just get connected in the mind when I'm watching TV and I'm watching a program about something that has to do with my culture or something that I relate with. How can I learn to be okay with that? So that this gap, when it's not completely empty. Yeah. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any other questions, suggestions for how we can take care of ourselves?
I have another point because what Emmanuel said is very, very true, and he mentioned something that we forgot, like faith. I know faith helped a lot of believer or Christian to cope or to overcome their loneliness or all trials in their life. And for example, we have like monks, they use their loneliness as a strength. And they learn so much to be in peace in their loneliness that it is just incredible. So and what Emmanuel said is that like you can learn to use your loneliness or the fact that you are alone, because loneliness, I think it is a mindset. You can be with people but still feel loneliness, where you cannot be around people and not feeling loneliness. So, and I think it is the balance, and some people they learn that so well that being alone is a strength for them, because that's how they feel themselves, or they meet themselves, and eventually they meet their God.
Yeah, very interesting. So a couple of things coming up there, and again, there are many. I picked up 2 of them. So that mind shift, changing how I think or feel about the problem, which is the loneliness. Am I thinking about my loneliness? If I continue to think of it as a problem, then I'm making the problem bigger. I'm making the loneliness bigger. The other one is, you mentioned the spirituality. And so spirituality can also help with the loneliness, in that, remember, we have the loneliness, you are carrying the burden. Now, if you are a believer, that spirituality, like a meta, there is something, it's not physically here, it's not like taking the burden and putting it here, but I'm offloading it from myself. It's something that I can take the weight off myself and put it somewhere where I have hope. Remember, it's not uncertain. If you're a believer, you have hope that your burden, when you put it there, it's being taken care of. And so back here, as in my human state, my hopelessness, my loneliness is being lifted. It's not getting more, it's being, because then I know somebody is working on that burden of mine. Somebody.
So how about back home, Elisabeth?
The loneliness back home, like, are you talking about us going back home?
No, how people should be coping with loneliness back home. Any idea, or any thing that we can take from them? So
back home, if I could just refer to my own community, again, it's also changing back there. So we are seeing that, like, our parents, who we could have been there to take care of them, we are not there anymore. So some of the ways that we are helping them to cope with that loneliness is staying connected with them, either through the phone. Thankfully, we have video calls nowadays. We can call. We don't have to write letters like they used to do before. So staying connected with them, visiting when you can. If possible, make it like predictable, like they know, they're not saying they're getting anxious, wondering when is my son gonna come or when is my daughter gonna come. You can be like, I'm going home every year, or I'm going back home every 5 years. Another way is maybe getting caregivers for them. You can, if it's possible in your area, that you can find somebody that can stay with mom in your absence or dad in your absence, you can get them a helper.